Today we're working on Office Icks. Welcome to Working on It, the podcast that helps you navigate the complexities of the modern workplace. I'm Lauren Spearman, brand consultant and advocate for care and transparency in the workplace.
And I'm Molly Johnson-Jones, CEO and co-founder of Flexer. Lauren and I are here to provide you with practical advice, hopefully insightful discussion, and expert guidance on how to thrive in your career.
In this episode, we're diving into a topic that affects us all, Office Icks. Oh my God, Molly, I'm so excited for this episode. The habits and behaviours that can make your skin crawl and the work days just feel a little bit longer. We're going to explore common Office Icks, why they bother us so much, and how to deal with them professionally.
We'll also discuss the impact of these Icks on workplace culture, productivity, and relationships. Plus, we'll share some strategies for addressing these issues without creating tension or awkwardness in the office.
Quick thanks to our sponsor, Ultra Speaking. More on them later.
So do you know who coined the term ick and how it got popularised?
No, but I feel like it's going to be some kind of social trend, surely.
Most recently, yeah, but that's actually not where it came from.
Oh.
So do you remember Ally McBeal?
Yes.
Yeah, like in 1999, she first said the word ick in the context that it's now used. And then on Love Island, and I was told this by somebody who's Gen Z and I can't remember all of the details. It was like 2016 or 2017 and somebody on Love Island used it and then it got brought into like common vernacular in the context of like something that puts you off someone normally romantically really suddenly.
My understanding of an ick was it's something that is like really unreasonable, like they have beige trousers. Sorry.
All right. I have actually been told that I'm an ick before.
Why?
At work twice.
Hang on. Before you have to explain those to me.
Yeah, so I actually probably was an ick. I think I'd ick myself now. So I used to go into the office and cycle in, and the bike storage was at the very, very bottom, but all my stuff was up at my desk. But it was quite a long cycle and I had a racing bike. So it was like full like cleated, lycra, helmet on, everything. And I'd like walk into the office first thing in the morning, get my stuff and go and shower. And so I was just like fucking walking around in my lycra. And one day this guy was like, "You're such an ick."
And you're like, I agree.
Exactly. And then another one, which was actually quite embarrassing as well, was I used to walk from like the tube to the office as well. And normally would wear heels in the office. But I'd also go to the gym at lunchtime. So I'd just wear my gym trainers with like full like pencil skirt suit. And a few people saw me and they're like, "That's such an ick."
Oh, when you were like, whenever you go into the city and you just see a load of men in like navy gilets and
they're like hokers.
Suits and yeah. A bit of New Balance.
That was me.
When I first moved to London, my housemate at the time, she worked in the city and I was like, "Oh, you're leaving the house?"
That's quite common, but it is really, really unattractive.
It's not right, but it's okay. Yeah. Now, in the context of, I guess, the workplace, and it is subjective, right? So
yeah,
what's going to work for one person isn't going to work for another. And actually what is acceptable in one company won't be acceptable in another.
Like, why do you reckon that the concept of an ick, which was romantic in the beginning, has moved to workplaces? Because I've got a theory.
That spill.
Work is also a place where loads of people connect and meet their partners. Like we obviously talked about that in the Office Romance episode. So I think that the idea of icks has evolved from what used to be a romantic sort of faux pas, something that puts somebody off, into being something that puts you off somebody professionally, because there is such overlap between the two that it's sort of become normalised.
It's still that personal connection or those relationships, whether it's romantic or working. Right.
And there's common enough instances where someone might find somebody attractive in the beginning at work and then they suddenly do something and yeah, they're like, ick.
Is there any coming back from it?
Yeah, exactly. And then going on from that, like if we think about icks in the workplace, I've heard a lot of people say about certain icks in the workplace that I reckon are just actually annoyances.
Yeah, because for me, an ick is something that is really unreasonable for no reason. Like it's perfectly okay. Whereas some people just like everything they hear about work is an ick.
Or they say that something is an ick because it annoys them about somebody rather than puts them off the person. I think there's a big difference of being annoyed versus like put off the person.
But it's almost like, I guess, in that context, does it matter? Is it something that, like, does it matter how that word's used?
Yeah.
We all kind of know that what it's meant to describe in the workplace.
Yeah, exactly.
I have been doing a little bit of homework.
Yeah.
Well, actually, this is how I spent a very productive hour yesterday. I wrote my own workplace icks.
Yeah.
And then I also did a little bit of research on LinkedIn, which was incredibly animated conversation. And I just thought I might get a few comments.
How many comments did you get?
Like well over 100. And it was just people that, some of them like left me this like massive list and they were like, oh God, that was so therapeutic. It's good to get a system. Shall I share mine?
Yeah, and we'll see if it's ick or annoyance.
Yeah, I think some of them, yeah. Oh, they're all probably annoyances. Okay, I'm going to try and skim through this. There is about 10 on this list.
Okay.
I think they're all annoyances, but we'll go with it. People not knowing when to stop talking in a meeting. Regulate yourself.
Yeah.
One.
That can definitely be an ick depending on the person.
Oh, and also just like whenever you go to an event or a conference or a panel, it's like know how to succinctly say something rather than
People that
bang on.
ask questions that start off with a 1-minute statement. Yeah. Oh my God.
You're like, and then you get to it and you're like, what was even the question?
Yeah.
Because you've gone on so long. Asking questions in a meeting that's already running over.
The worst thing that anyone could ever do, but I don't think that's an ick.
Okay. Meetings just generally overrunning, not keeping to schedule.
But that's an annoyance. But it has to be is it the person that's making the meetings run over?
Yeah, bad timekeeping. Slack meetings or Slack messages where they just start with hi. Just give me the full message. I don't want a buffer of a hi.
Yeah.
No agenda or description of a meeting.
Again, that's an annoyance.
This is not an ick. This is just not acceptable.
We just descend into a work rant.
Just the use of the word girl when talking about a woman at work.
Odd. I find that really odd.
I hate that.
Or using ladies as a collective noun for a bunch of women at work.
That's fine.
No, by a man, where they come up and they go, ladies, and you're like, no.
No, this is genuine. I think this is a good ick. People that say, can you see my screen? We have been screen sharing. We're working from home for a good 4+ years.
You just called me a ick for the second time today.
Molly, you're an ick. Get out. People who talk so much but say nothing.
Yeah.
That's just a life ick.
Yeah. I mean, if you went on a date with somebody and that happened, that would be an ick.
That's, oh God. When people say that's how we've always done it, well, has that worked out for you, Michael? Like, just because you've done it before, doesn't mean it's working now.
Yeah.
Oh, no, all this, actually, I had a physical reaction to reading this. Yeah. When a meeting slightly finishes early and, I'm going to give you 5 minutes of your life back.
Yeah. The phrase, in the same vein, the phrase bums on seats really gets me. If anyone uses the phrase bums on seats, I'm like, you are vile.
I think
Have you used that?
Yeah, but
why?
I feel like this is quite recently. Why does this ring a bell? And someone said, well, what else would be on the seat?
Yeah, like you're fucking kneeling on it. Like, why do you need to use that as a phrase to say people are somewhere?
And then finally, when people say my team, rather than our team, I just don't like it. Yakko in the corners agreeing too.
Yeah,
they're my personal icks.
Why does the my team ick you?
I feel like it's a real people trying to show authority rather than our team or the team I manage. Or I don't know. There's a possessiveness that
I feel like someone's really triggered you on that before.
Yes, that's come from personal experience.
Because unless you've got 2 people managing a team, then I feel like my team is.
Oh, but that's why I think it is an ick, because it's not. There's nothing particularly wrong with it. It just really grinds my gears. I don't like it. But I do have some LinkedIn faves, some very common ones, which I think we obviously did a little bit of research on common icks, but I think I see that resonated in what I've seen from LinkedIn audience. Most by far, when companies say we're a family.
Awful.
I would not speak to any of my colleagues the way I speak to my sisters.
No, but also the other way around, like a family, even when things are difficult and you're like, oh, you're useless, you carry on as a family. Yeah. You just sack someone if that happens.
Yes, yeah. I'm not going to try and recruit a family member if they leave tomorrow. I am guilty of this next one. Calling on Teams before sending a message. So but I feel that
just like for a chat. Like a quick
yes,
chat.
but I feel like if you've got a good working relationship with someone, that's not seen as. I think the context here is when people feel like they're being checked up on, or it's a distraction. Whereas some of my like previous teams, we've been so close that that's not seen as a thing, or it's not seen as a threat, or it's just handy because actually it's easier to speak to them.
I think it's also habit, because there's definitely two camps of people that like hate unsolicited phone calls. Like if my mum just called me out of the blue, I'd be like, what do you want? Or if any of my friends rang me out of the blue, I'd be like, are you okay? Whereas if someone texts you and they're like, oh, are you free for a chat in 10 minutes? I'd be like, oh, okay, they want to talk.
Yes.
But some people do just pick up the phone and talk to people. And I think that same behaviour is then repeated at work.
But I think that probably links back to not understanding someone's communication style.
Yeah.
So if I knew someone in my team member that was going to worry them for any reason, even if we had a really great relationship, I just wouldn't do them. I would give a heads up and just say, can you call me as soon as you're free or whatever.
Yeah.
With a bit of context.
With context.
Rather
You can't
than
be
panic
like,
people.
Can we have a chat?
Yes,
Awful.
which was actually my next point. Can we have a chat without context? That came up a lot. I think it just, again, it's knowing someone's communication style. Meetings before 10 a.m. or after 5 p.m, hard agree on that.
But an ick has to be done by a person. It can only be related
someone that
to the
puts
person.
in a 5 o'clock meeting.
Yeah.
Come on. No one's their best self at 5 o'clock.
But that's just, I think we have to delineate between what are annoying work habits, which I totally agree with all of those. But like somebody that eats with their mouth open, like at their desk, that's a person doing an ick. Or
okay, this is a valid ick then. Someone that takes calls in the middle of an open plan office.
Awful.
Disrespectful.
But also, you would be ashamed to be married to that person. Imagine if your husband came home and you were like, oh, we've never worked together, we've been married 10 years. And then they somehow tell a story and they're like, yeah, I couldn't find a meeting room, so I just had to take 3 calls in the middle of an open plan office. I'd leave. I'd be like, I'm off.
That wedding ring is off. Similar vein to this, not bringing headphones when you're on a call. That's my biggest.
Walking around the office with the headset, taking calls as well. Walking around.
Having a headset.
Headsets are an ick. Yes. With the mouthpiece.
Like, no one is giving Britney Spears with that.
But when people walk around and do that as well.
Okay. Like, ick plus one is headset whilst working from home.
It's like, is your house a call centre? Why would anyone do that? Or like, you must have seen some of the skits on TikTok where people are in a dressing gown with the headset. I'm like, guys,
I did have to tell someone in team at work that dressing gown wasn't appropriate for work from home wear once.
On calls, like video.
Yeah. And I partly felt bad. At the same time, I was like, no, when we're wearing dressing gowns to work, that there is a line.
Yeah, at least put a top on and with pyjama trousers. That's fine.
I did a call, like a news read the other day. I didn't have any trousers on.
Did you have knickers on?
Yeah, I had knickers on.
Because I learned the other day that one of my colleagues, when they're at home, just wears a t-shirt. That's an ick. Imagine imagining someone working from home.
Is it a fabric chair? Is it man or woman as well?
Imagine coming in and your partner
Can
that
you
live with.
How did that come up in conversation for you to find that out?
The same way where she was like, oh, I took a call like without trousers on. And I was like, why are you wearing knickers? She was like, no, I often just go bottomless. I was like, you're not in a nudist colony in Florida.
That is amazing. Just don't forget. Imagine if the door goes.
I'll never be
in the middle of it, go and get the door.
I'll never be able to look at her the same again on a call. Can I just check? Are you wearing underwear?
And that's when the grievance against you came out. Okay, some of these I'm gonna veto the own list based on your own fish in the microwave.
The person that microwaves the fish,
yes,
to Nick, has to be subjective. Have you seen the Aussie guy on TikTok that reenacts like the workplace icks and like your dull co-worker?
No, I haven't not seen this.
I think his name's Nick White. He's got a lot of followers and he's so good at reenacting these like icky workplace people that I get like a visceral reaction whenever I watch his TikToks. Morris finds him really funny, and I'm like, I actually can't watch this man. Like, he has become an ick. Because it'd be like, your dull co-worker eating a yogurt on a Teams call, but it's so visceral that I can't watch it. It's like, honestly cannot.
I need to go and check him out. But I think it's also sometimes, you're right. Is it a general ick, or is it specific to a person, and then it becomes anything that person
Yeah,
does?
and then they morph. If they do it enough, they become an ick.
I guess the reason why we get so bothered about them is because they maybe feel quite disrespectful, or some of them, like taking a call, an unsolicited call, or walking around the offices, it can be quite distracting, which if you're trying to get your head down and crack on with some work, I guess that can be annoying. But I guess what other reasons are that someone may get icked out?
I think an ick, there's an annoyance which often can pass, but then I think an ick is such a visceral feeling, and I think it's because it's attached to some form of like bond or like or dislike of somebody. Because again, I think it comes back to the fact that you make friends, you make relationships, like you spend so much time with people at work that there is enough time to find that an ick. Like, you only really get icked out, like it might be something a friend does, but you can forgive it, a romantic partner, because you spend so much time with them.
Yes, but I think that's, to your point at the beginning about it started off as a romantic thing.
Yeah.
Is, you have that honeymoon phase where you first meet someone, like, oh my God, they're amazing. And then it's like, oh wow, I can literally hear you. Like, this is more romantic, but like when I can hear someone masticating.
Oh yeah. Too much saliva. It's like, why have you got...
I can hear the like jaw click. Oh, it's disgusting.
I think there are a lot of food related, like eating related icks.
Yeah, but there are those things that it's naturally, the closer you are, or the more you get to know your colleagues, the more that sometimes those things will come out, don't they?
In some ways, talking about icks, like, because it's often done behind somebody's back, unless it's a joke and it's like, you wearing lycra is an ick. So I feel like it's a form of... Is it maybe a form of gentle bullying or bonding? Like, we bond with people when we take the piss out of them. So have workplace icks in some way become a way to bond and mock people in a way that is sort of okay because it's so popularised and so well understood?
But again, it's all within context, right? Because someone's saying that you with the cleats out
was an ick,
isn't it? But they're saying that they wouldn't say that to your face if they weren't comfortable, right?
Yeah.
But I think there is a difference between...
When I say gentle bullying, I mean like good bullying.
Yeah. If you can't take the piss out yourself, then who can you? But I think there's a difference between some of these icks where it's specific to someone, and some of them, I will concede, are just general respect or help boosting productivity in the workplace.
Yeah. I think if we bring the annoyances into icks, then I think that starts to have a very negative impact on workplace culture.
Yes. Yep.
Because it's sort of just like that phrase, your culture is only as good as the worst behaviour that you put up with, right? But then I do feel like that's a little bit of a different conversation, because an ick could be as banal as somebody eating a yogurt in a really weird way. That doesn't affect workplace culture,
and
in
also,
theory.
That's on you to sense check, am I being unreasonable?
Yeah.
Or is it actually really impacting my work? Because I think when someone's saying, actually, I find it really distracting, or it worries me when I get an unsolicited call on Teams, then actually I do think it's worth
bringing up.
Because if it's having an impact of actually sometimes, you just want to be able to concentrate rather than being disrupted all the time, which I think there's ways that you can self-manage that through turning off notifications or whatever, or kind of showing yourself as a way. But I do think some of those are, if they affect your productivity, then it might be worth discussing it a bit more. If it's just you having a real, yogurt issue, then that's different.
But then maybe that comes back to, are the bits of like meetings running on or being pushed or people calling you randomly, is that an ick? Because isn't an ick meant to be something that is specific to you and quite unreasonable? Like, although someone would call me an ick for wearing my lycra, no one could ever say, don't wear your lycra to get your stuff to shower. Like, that would be a ridiculous thing to say. Same as you could never say, don't eat a yogurt.
But an ick can be... So say it's something like...
what's in between the two, yeah.
Like, I think one of mine was something, when there's no agenda or a description for a team meeting, you're just added to a meeting. For me, it makes me like, not resent that. If it's one person that's constantly doing that, or doesn't know how to run a meeting properly, then you get to the point where you're like, I know.
But is that not bad behaviour and not an ick though? Because is it creating that's annoying multiple people?
But is an ick a difference between, like, it's not a universal truth, right? Because some people won't be bothered by that.
But that kind of goes for everything, right? I think it's more as like...
Maybe everything at work is an ick for me.
Maybe that's why you became freelance.
I've uncovered a whole new load of icks.
Because you've got one side of it where it's like it is genuinely negative behaviour, and a fair few people might find that. But that's fair to bring up, whereas loads of icks wouldn't be fair to bring up at all, because it's just like it's so specific to you and it's your own visceral reaction or trauma.
And actually, so many of these are specific office related. And I actually did sit and think about, is there anything specifically about being freelance that I can find as an ick? And I was, I was rattling around for ages and couldn't find something that was specific. It is quite office based.
I guess it's harder to be icked by email. No, I've got an ick, an email ick. People that say nice to meet you.
Your face as you said that. I hard agree on that.
That's the, like,
I just think in general, someone actually commented on LinkedIn to say, I wrote it down, people who write ridiculously long emails and then at the end must realise they're too busy to write their full names to put their initials. I do that. and then once I met someone in real life and they were like, hi Elle, and I was like, oh.
you do it that often that someone called you that?
Yeah, because I'm like, my name's, you see it's from me, so I don't want to have to rewrite my name, or it's in my signature. So
do you ever start emails?
I'd rather put nothing.
Do you ever start emails with just someone's name?
I mostly don't even put their name. I just go straight.
Do you ever go like Terry? I hate it when people can't. If you're gonna put the beginning bit, say hi or hey or
I hope you're well.
Something. But you can't just go in and be like, Molly. I'm like,
Molly, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Instant delete.
That actually that's a full ick. I couldn't, even if they're the best looking person in the world. No. So we're going to do some, they're a 10 at their job, but.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to play a game.
Yeah.
Okay, so Molly.
Yeah.
Quick fire round.
Yeah.
They're an 8 at work, but they call a presentation a deck. Call a PowerPoint slide a deck.
I do that so they can stay an 8. I might upgrade them 10.
I'm guilty of it, but I'm like, what? Where have we replaced like presentation or slides with like deck?
It's easier. Why do you shorten your name Lauren to L? These are the questions that we need to answer.
Actually, I'm not shortening in my name. I'm adding an L because I'd rather like nothing. I'm going out of my way to be polite.
Okay. They're a 10 at their job, but they say low-hanging fruit.
2, because I wouldn't give them 1. They're a 9, but they use the term rock star in hiring.
-2. Ninja, rock star, any of that. No, can't deal with that. They're a 10 at their job, but their only language is mansplaining.
Oh. Immediate no. 0.
Okay, I've got a few more. I felt inspired. They're a 10 at their job, but they take Teams calls with no knickers on.
Promote them immediately. 10.
They're a 10 at their job, but they wear a headset all the time, even when they're not on calls.
Even when they're wearing no knickers. 6. That's not too bad.
Okay, and my last one is, and this actually used to happen, this is an ick that I just uncovered for myself. They're a 10 at their job, but they take their shoes and socks off when they're at the desk. So just got little naked feet under the desk. In a suit.
Yesterday, I'm laughing because yesterday I went to my co-working space and I was so tired and I was just like working away and I took my shoes off and a little pumps like this and I just sat cross-legged on the chair and then I just had this moment where I was like, if anyone sees me, they must think I look so pathetic. So yeah, we can mark them down.
But your feet weren't like out in the middle of an office.
I get asked to show my feet on lives all the time.
Were they fake tan though?
I will concede that is an ick and I do it myself 4.
You're more reasonable on your down ratings. I'm just like 0. Can't look at them the same.
This is a quick reminder you're listening to Working on It, the podcast that unpacks the trials and tribulations of today's modern work environment with me, Lauren Spearman.
And me, Molly Johnson-Jones. It's time for a quick ad break. Ever freeze up before a big presentation? For many of us, public speaking can be absolutely nerve-wracking. But it doesn't have to be. After coaching thousands of clients and students, our friends at Ultra Speaking have put together the ultimate public speaking playbook. A free mini course breaking down some of their most powerful techniques to help you to become a more engaging speaker in just 5 days. So, are you ready to overcome your public anxiety and change your career trajectory? Head to ultraspeaking.com/Flexer to get instant access to the mini course or click the link in the show notes.
If there is something that is half ick, half actually genuinely unreasonable, what's the best way to approach that?
I guess you've really got to think which are the two really heavily intertwined. Like, because you've got the ick from that person, does it mean that now you're being unreasonable about the thing that you're a bit annoyed by?
Yeah, I think you have to have some self-awareness. Like, if it is the way someone eats a yogurt, I don't think that's okay to then say.
But it could be that the way they ate the yogurt gave you the ick, but then they asked a question at the end of a meeting and that sent you over the edge.
But I do think you have to manage your own emotions sometimes.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, right? Like, an ick is something that is super personal to you that you feel icked out by. That's sort of a you problem to some extent. And so I think, just like with so many scenarios, and we've talked about it before, we sort of need to be adults at work and think like, is this just an ick and I'm finding it unattractive because I don't think it's an attractive thing for a person to do? Or is this something such as, this person keeps moving my one-to-ones, or this person keeps saying, can I have a chat? And it's making me really anxious, in which case then you can give fair feedback and address it gently.
Yeah, and especially if you've got some examples to go with that as well. And I also think it depends on, your relationship with someone. If it's someone that you've got a good working relationship with, but they're constantly getting up in the office and wandering around taking the calls, I think you can be like, oh, mate, I heard everything there. Or, you could... You could
or say, I do find that quite distracting, and it would be great if you could maybe not walk around so much on a call.
Yeah, pop some knickers on.
Walking around bottomless would be gross misconduct, I think. I don't think there's any point addressing that ick in an office.
Windmill Wednesday. Okay, so on that, Molly, I've just seen a very interesting stat. So apparently, according to Vital Smarts, 95% of employees struggle to address their frustrations with colleagues directly.
That's really high. I thought it'd be high, but I didn't think it'd be 95.
Yeah, I expect it to be fairly high if it's something that feels quite personal. But if it's so related to work and you can link it back to, say, productivity or distraction or but more collaborative teamwork or something, I would not expect it to have been that high. And we've obviously, in a previous episode, discussed conflict at work and how to address it. But something that feels a bit icky or a bit of frustration, like, how good are your working relationships if you can't talk to your colleagues?
I think also in the context of remote working from 2020, maybe with small back and forths like that, of just like a little behaviour that you find a bit irritating, if you're not working side by side with somebody at least relatively frequently, it might feel like a bigger deal to bring it up over Slack or over Teams.
I think it's also like some of the things we've talked about could definitely be minimised by having kind of clear guidelines or working relationships. So in one of my previous jobs, one of my biggest observations when I first came in was the chaos around meetings. So it got to the point where 1 week I monitored, I had 30 hours of meetings.
30 hours?
Like, this is ridiculous.
That's exhausting as well.
It wasn't productive because, I just had less and less time to really do the work or kind of spend time with my team.
And then you end up with meetings about meetings.
Yeah, pre-meetings, like debriefs, all this stuff. So I introduced like a meeting guide, and it was 2 slides that were just like, here's how we run a meeting. So it's making sure that you're only inviting people that are either vital or it's clear that it's optional if they need to be there. You have make sure the subject is clear. Is there an agenda? Is there a description? What can you send in advance for pre-reading? Is it a decision meeting? Is it a discussion meeting? And having that really clear guidance meant that a lot of stuff, did it even need to be a meeting? Because half of it is like putting a meeting in just to talk to someone. I think this comes back to, how else do you communicate? Is it through Slack? Is it through phone calls? Whatever that is. And I think having those kind of guidelines would eradicate a lot of the stuff that we've spoken about today.
If it's an annoyance that's like borderline an ick, then sometimes approaching those situations with a bit of humour is often the best way to go. Like if it's not a seriously big deal and it's not that somebody's making you feel really anxious or a behaviour that you think is unacceptable, having a bit of a laugh about it can sometimes be the easiest way forward.
As you were talking then, my mind was going to someone eating a banana on a call. You cannot
Right.
make eye contact while eating a banana.
Exactly. So
Same
then
as
you
yogurt.
laugh about that, and that person will probably remember and go, "Oh, I shouldn't make eye contact on a call while eating a banana," and maybe they probably won't do it again. That's what you'd hope.
Yes. But I also think there are also things outside of a manager, but an office space, for example, can provide spaces where, are there enough breakout spaces for phone calls? Is it completely open plan or areas closed off to noise? Or,
Are there zones for eating yogurt by yourself? Maybe it's worth us digging in a little bit more with the advice on the actual ick stuff around the humour stuff, because we don't want to veer off into the advice of the issues. We want it more to be specifically about the stuff that we've talked about, like mansplaining or taking their shoes and socks off or saying words like low-hanging fruit. If you are mansplaining something, like you can gently have a laugh about that and pull someone up on it, but in a way that's not combative or confrontational. Or if somebody takes their socks and shoes off under the desk, you can also have a laugh about that and just make a little joke or a comment. Same with using corporate jargon. It's easy to make light of a situation and do it back to somebody, so then they're aware that maybe their behaviour is a bit annoying, but it's not a confrontation and it's not like, I dislike you because of what you're doing. I think it can be dealt with in a very lighthearted and natural way.
But on that humour thing, if you don't have that close, or you don't have that kind of relationship where it can come across like you're being passive aggressive.
True.
If you do. So I think it's knowing when to use humour.
And who with and how you come across when you're doing it as well. Like some people have a gift at it, like they're amazing at making light of situations and using humour to sort of dissolve tension. And other people, as you say, it can come across as being a bit passive aggressive. So having self-awareness about how you come across.
And having that understanding of different people will work differently. Some people might not even know that it's bothering. I keep coming back to it, but that point about unsolicited calls on, Slack or Teams or whatever, if
it might just be totally normal for them.
Yeah, and it's one of my, I always say this whenever I join a company, both to people I'm managing, my peers and my manager, one of the first questions I ask is, what's your communication style? Like, how do you want to be communicated to? What's the best way for us to keep in touch? And obviously everyone's going to be different. And, you can't always adapt to absolutely everyone. But I think it's having an understanding that if I know if actually someone would rather I pick up the phone and send a message, then I think it's considerate of me to, try and remember that if I can.
Yeah. And also to be aware of the fact that just as we think people have icks, we probably have them ourselves. And so being aware that it is about like...
And as we're learning, we are icks.
What do you think your biggest ick is? Doesn't have to be work related. If
someone's eating a bread roll and they do this noise where it's like you can hear the dust of the bread. I can't.
What? You can hear the dust of the bread?
My granddad, R.I.P. bless him, my granddad on my mum's side, sometimes he'd eat a roll and it'd be like... this noise. Eating a roll. Yeah, that's something that sprung to mind. Hearing people eat is...
My biggest ick is when you see men in work situations where their like shirt or t-shirt's ridden up a little bit so you can just see a tiny bit of tummy. And it's such an ick in workplace settings.
That is so specific. Worse than like a sweaty back.
Yeah. Yeah, worse than a sweaty back. Worse than
not wearing any knickers to work.
Well, I've never seen that at work. What
never
do you do? You think there's anything you do that would really ick someone out at work?
Swear. I swear.
Do you think that's an ick for people?
Yeah, some people feel really uncomfortable with it. That's not an ick.
Though.
I would never swear at anyone. Sorry, just to caveat that. Never swear at anyone. That is a hard line.
Just do your fucking job.
Yeah. But, sometimes you can take the girl out of Essex, but you can't take Essex out of the girl. Moving on, Molly, we do have a real life story. Shall we share?
Yes. So somebody's written in and shared a perfect example, actually, of what I think is the ick crossed with difficult behaviour.
Okay.
So I work in an open plan office and my colleague constantly takes loud personal calls at her desk. It's incredibly distracting and I've noticed others getting annoyed too. I've tried giving her pointed looks and even putting on headphones, but nothing seems to work. I don't want to come across as confrontational, but it's really affecting my work. How can I address this without damaging our work relationship?
When I'm hearing that, it sounds like there hasn't actually been anything to address it at all, because pointed looks and things like that, I know that it may feel like that's,
and some people might react to that.
Yeah. I think firstly, interesting to note their personal calls, so it's not even work related in the first place. But I think in that instance, they might not even understand that they're distracting.
Yeah.
So
it might be like an office etiquette thing.
Yeah,
again,
so my advice would be to maybe have a conversation. If you feel comfortable enough in person, or maybe just pop a note to say, I've noticed a number of calls I've found quite distracting in the office. There are, have you considered, hang on, how would I word it? Have you considered using phone booth?
Have you considered not behaving like this?
Yeah. But I think actually sometimes just even bringing it up, people may not have even realised what they're doing.
I think gently bringing it up, like with those kind of things where it is a small behaviour and they might genuinely not know, just saying, hey, really sorry to be a pain, but would you mind taking a personal call outside just because I'm trying to get my head down and get some work done?
Yeah.
Because if it's like can we have a conversation about something, and then it becomes a big deal, then it kind of disproportionately blows it up.
You're right. Nip it in the bud.
Yeah, and just say, and then if that then doesn't change it, then you can escalate it. But a lot of time, I think we hype feedback and giving feedback up in our heads, and we get annoyed by something and we're like, oh, why don't they realise it? I've been looking at them. I've been trying to express my discomfort with this. And so then we inflate the situation in our heads and we think, oh, actually, this is a really big thing and I have to address it. When actually, if you put yourself in their shoes, somebody saying, hey, would you actually mind doing this? You'd be like, oh shit, yeah, of course.
And I think we can end up sometimes winding ourselves up.
Absolutely.
So I am the person that on the tube will ask someone to either use headphones or turn the volume down. And because I've learned that if I sit and stew,
it makes you angrier about it.
Yeah, and actually, like 9 times out of 10, someone will just turn it down.
Yeah.
Occasionally you get someone that's an absolute beep, but generally most people will.
Yeah.
So in the same scenario, it's like you can sit and stew on it and it really bubble up for you, or you can just nip it in the bud.
Same as if you go and choose to talk to somebody else about it and then they also find it annoying, and then you hype each other up about it as well, rather than the first thing you could do is just go, hey, would you mind not doing that?
And you're right. It's like if someone said that to you, but oh shit, okay, yeah, fine.
Sure. Yeah. And it wouldn't be a big deal. And if it does become a big deal, then also that's on them to some extent.
And actually there's a stat from Career Builder that says 53% of workers say loud talkers is the most distracting behaviour in the office.
Oh, it's incredibly distracting.
Yeah, it is incredibly common.
And sometimes sometimes it's unavoidable as well. Like there's a difference between taking loud personal calls and 2 people having a chat about work next to you. Like some of it's work and some of it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Molly, I have thoroughly enjoyed this episode. It feels quite cathartic.
Just getting all of your icks out there on the table.
Yes. But I think for me, the biggest learning from this is what is genuine in ick and something that is personal to you and maybe is a little bit unreasonable in terms of how you're seeing it, and what is something that is a genuine distraction or disruption or something that might need addressing.
Exactly. I do think there is that delineation, and icks has come from a romantic concept of like finding something off-putting, whereas things like asking a question at the end of the meeting is probably more of a workplace annoyance.
Yes. That's it for this week. If you want to get in touch, you can contact us on Instagram or TikTok at workingonit.pod, or email us hello@workingonit.show.
Next up, we'll be talking about work Christmas parties.
I can't wait. Until next time, keep working on it.